Hello, welcome to Triathlon Basics by the YWCA Minneapolis Women's Triathlon. The YWCA Minneapolis was founded in 1891 with the mission of eliminating racism and empowering women. The Women's Triathlon was founded in 2008 with the mission to celebrate the strength of all women. I am Kim Zest. I aim to help you better understand triathlon, whether you are considering registering for your first or you have committed to your 10th. Let's start with the very basics. What is a triathlon? First of all, it's in the family of endurance multi-sport events. Triathlon typically is a continuously timed swim, bike, and run. Now, not all triathlons follow this particular layout on the screen. A lot of it is determined by the body of water. Here in Minnesota, this is what most triathlons, how they're laid out. So there is a swim where you go in and come out of the water. There is a single transition area. That is where your bike and all your stuff is. You get out of the water and you go to T1, transition 1, where you get out of swim, whatever you have, we'll talk about it later, and into bike. You go for the bike ride. And when you come back, you have T2, transition 2, bike to run. You head out for the run, and then there's a finish line. It means you have a swim time, a transition 1 time, a bike time, a transition 2 time, a run time, and a finish time. So you'll end up with 6 total times and possibly more numbers such as pace, etc. But it gives you an idea of how transition or triathlon works. It's really tied together by the transitions. A couple things to know about the transition areas. In transition, you don't lock your bike. There are bike racks, but no one ever locks their bike in transition. At the YWCA Women's Triathlon, our transition area is secure. And then there is no nudity. There are no changing rooms and there's no nudity. We'll talk about what to wear further down. One thing to keep in mind as we go forward in these slides is that I'm talking about both the women's triathlon and most triathlons. Not all the triathlons are exactly alike, and whatever other race that you might be considering doing, make sure you read everything they put out on the website, race guide, all of it, because there can certainly be variations from race to race. Let's talk a little bit about the YWCA Women's Triathlon. We're the second Sunday of every August, so you can always put that in your calendar for future years for racing or volunteering. We have 2 distances, the sprint and the super sprint. The super sprint is available for ages 10 and up, and the sprint is available for 14 and up. There are all sorts of distances in triathlon, and it's good to be aware that not all sprint distance triathlons across the country or in Minnesota are the same length, so make sure you check your distances. I'm biased, but I think that the YWCA Women's Triathlon is the best triathlon in the country. There are lots of reasons. We work really hard to make this an exceptional event. As a triathlon, we run things by USA Triathlon national standards for safety, but moreover, it's about the spirit of this event. We want every racer from the first to the last to feel amazing and to be treated equally. We do things that make things a little inconvenient for people because of that, but we want to make sure that all racers have the same quality experience. We also make this a very family-friendly event. So we have a baby care tent, we have a family play zone, we have a friends and family finish so that people can cross the finish line with their loved ones. And we just do all sorts of other things to try to make sure that this is a special event. We make a big effort from ordering supplies to race day procedure to be a low waste event, to be really environmentally friendly. And then we really want to make sure everyone is as prepared as possible and feels supported from beginning to register and just getting started all the way past the finish line. So if you're not registered, get registered. Now we really dive in to how to get ready for a triathlon. We're going to talk about leading up to race day, then we're going to talk about race day. After we get past going through some race day scenarios, then we'll talk about clothing, gear, training, all of that good stuff. You don't have to memorize all of this, and it doesn't all have to apply to you. So make sure you just take from this what makes sense for you, your race goals, your experience, and what race you're registered for and preparing for. Before race day, first you want to taper. Taper is a term we use in training, and it just means rest. Ideally, from months before the race, you are building up your fitness level. In that process of building up the fitness level, you build fatigue as you are asking your body to do more than it is used to. You want to get to race day rested and fresh. So anywhere between a week to 2 weeks, sometimes more, but generally 1 to 2 weeks, you ease off that training. It's not a time to fit in every workout that you missed or to do the race before the race. This is important. Rest. Training and your life, it's not also a good time to landscape your entire yard. And then packet pickup, make sure you've scheduled it. The YWCA Women's Triathlon does not have packet pickup on race day unless you paid for it in advance. But whatever the race that you're registered for, make sure you've scheduled and planned for packet pickup. It's very important in triathlon because you get a lot of race numbers. You're gonna get race numbers for the swim. In the women's triathlon, it's temporary tattoos that go on your arms. You'll get 2 numbers for the bike portion. You'll get a number that goes on your helmet and the number that goes on your bike. The bike number is a big sticker and it generally goes over the top tube of your bike. And then you'll have a run number, which is a race bib that goes on your front. You need to cross the running finish line wearing that run number. We'll talk a little bit more about what to do with all of those numbers later, but you need to make sure you get all of those numbers at packet pickup and whatever else you might be getting at packet pickup as well. Plan for your spectators. So if you have people coming, make sure that they've read all the relevant material. It's really fun to have people that you love to support you, but you don't want them to become your worst nightmare on race day when you're nervous and trying to get ready and take care of yourself and they're asking 10 bazillion questions. So make sure that they're prepared. Plan for a post-race celebration. I'll get into this a little bit more later, but triathlon has a particular post-race celebration. Part of it is logistical in terms of you simply cannot leave the race immediately when you're done. But the other part is that we have a really great celebration that is for everyone, and there are door prizes. So if you stick around, it's a really good party. But that's the thing that you'd want to make sure your spectators are aware of as well. Check the weather. We have all sorts of policies for what to do in different weather situations. Make sure you've read about those and make sure you're just aware of what conditions might be coming that you might be looking for announcements for. And then pack so you can't forget anything. I have forgotten it all. My clients have forgotten it all. Our race staff has forgotten it all. And so make sure that you packed in such a way that you don't forget anything super critical. Our race founder forgot part of his bike. So just keep that in mind. Race morning, so exciting. It starts before you even leave. Make sure that you've worked your timetables backwards to figure out when you need to wake up, how long it's going to take to get there, and what you want to do at home. It's going to be a long day. You gotta eat breakfast, even if it is well before sunrise and you can't imagine eating. You really need to eat something, and whatever else you need to do at home before you want to get to the race venue. There's never close parking at triathlon because the race needs the roads for the bike course. So just keep that in mind. You want to arrive early. Our transition area opens at 5:45 a.m. and I highly recommend actually arriving early. There's a lot to do and it's much better to have everything go smoothly, get it all done, and then just have time to kill than to be mad scrambling at the last minute. So transition area opens at 5:45. You will have parked. This is important. You'll have parked and you will have gone anywhere between a quarter mile and a mile from parking to the race venue. If you choose to bike there, make sure your helmet is on and clipped. When you arrive, you'll get to transition area. There's no bike riding in transition. You'll come into transition area and generally get your bike and your stuff checked out to make sure it's all legal and safe, like your helmet. You'll find your transition spot. The women's triathlon assigns you a rack, and then it's a free-for-all within that rack. So you find your spot, put your stuff down, and then go get in lines. You need to get your timing chip. You don't get that in packet pickup. It stays on race day at race venue. So you get your timing chip. That timing chip is on Velcro that wraps around your left ankle away from the drivetrain of your bike. If there's anything else you need to get in line for, do that, but the timing chip is the big one. Then you'll go back to transition and set up your transition area. We'll go over that in more detail later. But set up your transition area and then go walk the flow. Even if you're very familiar with the race venue, it always looks different on race morning. There's tons of flagging and fencing. It's a maze in the transition area, so you need to walk the flow so that you'll know how to navigate. You walk down to the beach, you go to swim start, you look out there, you look at the buoys, you see which way you'll turn, you see the sun direction, you'll see what you'll be sighting for. On the beach, you walk over to swim exit and turn around. What is it going to look like when you're coming out of the water? Where is the fencing? Where is the chute? So make sure you walk up that way. Notice anything. Maybe you notice where there's grass, where there's sand, where there's path. Then you come into the transition area and it's a field of transition racks. How do you find your bike without just having to look at all the race numbers? So maybe you find some large landmarks. It's by that trash can, it's by the big tree, it's by that no parking sign. So you'll use other things to help you navigate. Some people put balloons on transition racks. I request that you not do that. Balloons get tangled in things and they get blown around by wind. And so it can become kind of a hazard. There are other things you can do, bright towels and other things that you can help find your transition spot that isn't as flimsy as a balloon. You find your bike, and then you might take that bike and walk it out of transition area. Again, no bike riding in transition. So you walk your bike out of transition and you find, where do I go now? How do I get out of this maze? You get out of transition. Make sure you find the mountain line. You can't ride your bike until you cross the mountain line and are fully out of the transition area. So you find that mountain line, you get over the mountain line, and then maybe if you feel like doing a little bike warm up, you go warm up. If not, you just take your bike and find where will you be coming in when you're done with the bike. What does it look like? Where is the dismount line? No bike riding in the transition area, so you'd have to dismount your bike before crossing the dismount line. So make sure you're familiar with where that is. So once you find that, and then you have to find your transition spot, but you can't look for your bike because you're holding it and you're approaching it from a different side. So how do you find your transition spot from a different angle and you can't look for your bike? You find that spot, you re-rack your bike exactly the way it was before, take off your helmet, and then you need to find the run out. Find the run out, all that's good. And then if you want to walk over to the finish line, you certainly can, although generally people don't have trouble finding that and it's not always fully set up at this point in the morning. So that's walking the flow. And then if you need to do other things to warm up, if you need to visit the porta potty line for the 10 bazillionth time, I often suggest at this point maybe having another snack, all sorts of things. At 7:45, the transition area closes. So at that time, everyone has to be out of the transition area, and you will not be able to re-enter until you're actively racing. So you'll want to make sure that you take anything with you, like your phone, your keys, maybe your water bottle, warm-up clothes if it's a chilly morning, all sorts of things like that. So you take those things out of transition area. You also want to be prepared to swim, so swim cap and goggles. You leave your transition area set up just the way you want for biking. So you exit transition area at 7:45. The pre-race meeting is at 8. For the YWCA, we are not allowed from our park permit to start announcing things until 8 a.m. So that's when we have to start. 8 a.m. is when we start our pre-race meeting. That's where you'd find out about any last-minute changes. And it's also a chance to celebrate and rally together. So go to the pre-race meeting. And then the race starts at 8:10. Most likely you are not the first person in the water. You might be waiting 20 minutes, you might be waiting 40 minutes, you might be waiting an hour before you start. This is why we have bag check. It's available at any time, and before your wave gets staged on the beach, that's a time to go to bag check and check your bag with maybe your phone, your keys, your wallet, your warm-ups, a snack, whatever else is in there. So there you have it. And then it'll be time to get staged on the beach according to your wave. That's all stuff you find out the week before the race, and at packet pickup is your race number and your wave. And your wave is just how you are grouped on the beach to get started. I'm going to run through 2 quick examples of how a race goes from start to finish. So the first example I'm going to run through is just a pretty basic first-timer experience, and the second time I will run through slightly faster with some other techniques for a more competitive athlete. So in the swim, I will be on the beach grouped by my wave. For the women's triathlon, it's time trial start. So as my wave is on the beach, we get sorted into groups of roughly 5, and then groups of 5 enter every 5 seconds. So it's a pretty steady flow of swimmers entering the water. It's really exciting. There's music. It feels like a lot of pressure. I'm going to focus on just entering smoothly and calmly so that I'm not starting panicked. I'm going to find my rhythm with whatever stroke. Maybe I start with some side stroke just to get easing in, and then I'll do some freestyle, maybe mix in some more side stroke, maybe float on my back just to get my bearings, catch my breath. And then I'm just gonna keep swimming. There are buoys that I'm gonna keep an eye out for, and there are noodle swimmers. I might go over to a noodle swimmer and take a little rest, clear my goggles, and continue going. As I get close to exiting the swim, the big thing is to just keep swimming so that I don't have to wade through chest deep water. It is slow and long and hard. So I keep swimming until there's normal water to swim in, and then I just stand up slowly and walk out of the water. I go up to transition 1. I keep it super simple. So even if I loved having a bazillion things in training, I'm going to pare it down as minimal as possible so that I don't have lots of decisions to make. I take off my cap and goggles. I put on shoes, make sure helmet is on and clipped. I take my bike out of transition. I cross the mount line. I get on my bike. And when I am on my bike and with the mounting, I just get on normally, nice and slow. Once I'm on my bike is a chance to eat and drink. So it's really nice to have practiced this. I'm going to make sure I stay alert. I need to stay to my right unless I am passing. And then I just need to be aware of other people around me. The women's tri is very well marked. It's very unlikely that you could get off course, but we do have 2 courses, a super sprint and a sprint. And so you need to be aware of people going on the super sprint or the sprint, and are you going, which course are you going on, and where are other people going, and is someone passing you, and where are their curbs? Just, you need to stay alert. And then when I am almost done with the bike, I got to prepare for the run. So I might shrug my shoulders, I might wiggle my ankles, scrunch and spread my toes, just sort of get my legs and body as much ready for the run before I actually get off my bike. When I'm approaching the transition area, I'm making sure to slow down. I slow down and stop before the dismount line, get off my bike, and then I walk my bike over the dismount line. I walk into transition, I find my transition area, I re-rack my bike, I take my helmet off, do whatever else you need to do. I like to grab my race belt with my race number on it so that I'm not dealing with safety pins. And I go off on the run. The run in the beginning is always hard. I used to say that the run felt like leaded jello, in that your legs were the heaviest and least supportive thing that you could have attached to your body. I said that until I had a baby and a toddler. I found out that can be a very heavy, unsupportive thing attached to your body. But the run generally doesn't feel great, and practice and training will help you get accustomed to how that feels in your body and how quickly it wears off, and how techniques and plans to help you cope with that sensation. Cross the finish line and it's a party. So stick around. And this is an important thing. The transition area does not reopen until the last finisher is done using it. So unless you are the last finisher, you're going to finish and you're going to have some time where you're just going to go to bag check, get your phone, your keys, hang out with friends, eat, check out the vendors, hang out in the grass, do the post-race celebration. So we don't publish exactly when that's going to happen, because it happens when the last racer is done using the transition area. So that's the basics. I'm going to run through that really quickly with some other techniques for more experienced athletes. So if I was a more experienced athlete, for the swim, I would run into the water, picking my legs up high so that I'm not kicking through the water. I might do some dolphin dives to get past sort of the mid-shallow water. And then I'm immediately going to start swimming freestyle. I'm going to swim freestyle and I'm going to be sighting for a buoy, roughly anywhere between 10 to 40 strokes. That's a wide range, but it really depends on conditions. I'm going to do a corkscrew turn around the two turn buoys, turning left. And as I swim into shore, I'm going to make sure I'm tracking nice and straight. And as I swim into shore, not only am I going to swim past the chest deep water, I'm going to keep swimming until I'm grabbing sand, pulling myself in until there's really no more water to swim in. Once I do that, I come to kneeling, put my goggles up, and then run out of the water. Most likely, as a more experienced athlete, I might have a wetsuit on. Not only is it warmer and more buoyant, but it also makes me faster. So I'd be unzipping that as I run up to my bike in transition. Take cap, goggles off, wetsuit off, toss that down. At this point, I put on eye protection, helmet, on and clipped, and I take my bike out of transition. My triathlon specific bike shoes are clipped to my bike, so I run past the mount line and I jump on my bike barefoot. I get pedaling, and then once I'm up to speed, I coast and slide one foot into my shoe, pedal, 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 coast, and slide the other foot into the shoe. I bike, I eat, I stay alert, just like the previous example. When I'm getting closer to the transition area and almost done with the bike, I am preparing my body for the run. But this time, I am also taking off my shoes and preparing for what's sometimes called a flying dismount, so that I'm not slowing down and coming to a full stop. I dismount my bike at a slow, controlled speed, but I haven't fully stopped. Dismount the bike before the dismount line. Run with my bike across the dismount line into transition, find my area, re-rack my bike, helmet off, change into my run shoes, grab my race belt, and out I go. So couple of different things in there, that example. That's not meant to say that everyone needs to do those things. To illustrate there are different techniques for different experiences and different goals, and whether or not you just are aware of them so that when you see them, you already know, you've made a decision about what kind of race you want to have, or maybe there are goals and things that you want to learn to do.
In a triathlon, the transition area is what pulls 3 sports into one. On race day, this can be a very large, confusing area with hundreds of racks, tons of fencing, with one-way traffic. In this video, I'll walk you through a flow, and on race day, you should do a similar thing so that you know where everything is and where to go.
So here I am coming in from the swim. I use a specific swim in entrance and then find my rack and my bike. On race day, this is a much bigger area with hundreds of racks and lots of bikes, and you'll find your rack with your bike, but always make sure you've got your helmet on and clipped. There's no bike riding in the transition area, so you need to unrack your bike and then walk or run it out. Not only out through the fencing, but you're gonna walk it until you cross a line, a mount line, and then you'll go for your bike. On the way back, you come in through a different bike-in entrance. You gotta find your rack without looking for your bike because you have it. So you find your spot. You put your bike back where you got it from. Always remember to take off your helmet and get whatever you need to get ready for your run. And then once you are ready for the run, there is a separate run out to finish your race.
Well, you know how to get on and off your bike. In a transition and in a triathlon, the pressure is on, there's a lot of people, adrenaline is going, and this is where a lot of crashes happen. So I'll be showing you just a basic mount so that you can feel calm and confident.
There are several methods to mount and dismount your bike. I'm going to show you a simple version so that you can be safe and not fall over or crash. So you will walk or run your bike out of transition, cross the mount line, put the brakes on before straddling your bike, getting one foot onto a pedal and looking up before biking away. With dismounting, remember that there's no bike riding in the transition area, so you need to slow down and stop before the dismount line. Simply make sure that you're ready to slow down and step off your bike before the line.
Transition 1, the swim to the bike, and transition 2, bike to run, are skills in themselves. Practicing with your gear and your clothing will help you feel smoother, more confident, and have a faster, better race day experience. On your transition rack, your transition space will be on the side where your bike is wheel side down, high wheel side down, this is the wheel side up, and away from the drivetrain, away from your chain. So my transition space is on the side of my bike, the wheel side is down as opposed to on the other side of the rack, and I'm away from my drivetrain as opposed to being on this side of my wheel. When there are other bikes, most of the time we'll alternate, so the next person next to me would be wheel side down on that side. Cap and goggles off, sunglasses, helmet, bike shoe, all ready to go. And then I just unhook my bike and go to bike out. Coming back, I approach on my side of the rack, turn my bike around, and hook it back exactly the way it was before. Can't thread through or go around. Taking these things off. Grabbing my run shoes. Sock is ready to go. Stepping into my bungee lace shoes. Sock is ready to go. Stepping into bungee laces. I grab my race number and my visor, and off I go. This is a different setup for a transition where I don't have bike shoes. I just have one pair of shoes, my running shoes, without bungee laces, just regular laces, running shorts, and instead of having a race belt with a bib attached, I have just a t-shirt with the race number pinned to the front already. The key here is that I've still laid things out in such a way that I'll put them on in the right order and not forget. It's really irritating to put on your helmet and then realize that you can't get your shirt on over the helmet. So everything is still laid out so that I can't forget it, and it goes on really smoothly. So cap and goggles off, just throw those down, get my shorts on, and just pretend that I'm wearing a regular swimsuit, and still have my socks in the right orientation so they're easy to pull on. Shoes are loose, laces are ready to go. Tying laces is hard enough in the best of times, extra hard when your fingers are cold, you might be full of adrenaline. Bungee laces are definitely a nice feature, but you don't have to have them. And then my shirt is laid out so that it just goes right on. Don't want to forget my eye protection and my helmet. Grab my bike. On my way back, same thing. Put my bike in exactly the way it was before. And now I'm mostly ready to run, but don't run with your helmet. So I'm going to switch out my helmet and eye protection for my visor, but I already have my race number on. A fun demonstration of what not to do.
Let's talk about some important rules. There are a lot of rules in triathlon. You don't need to know all of them, but I do suggest going online, reading USA Triathlon's rules and reading the rules on the Women's Triathlon website and race guide, or whatever race you're doing. It's very important for the safety of everyone. So first of all, helmets must be on and clipped anytime you are in possession of your bike. This applies even before the race. So we don't want you to end up in the med tent before the race even starts. Helmets on and clipped even if you're biking to the race, or you will be disqualified. For swimming, no swimming with any flotation device. It's okay to get help. For the women's triathlon, we have noodle swimmers. They're volunteers with pool noodles, and they are available for you. You can swim over to them, rest on a pool noodle, and then continue on. What you can't do is take the pool noodle with you, and you can't ask anyone to tow you. So just no making forward progress with that assistance. And then no abandoning equipment or littering. So that helmet needs to be on and clipped, but it's generally not great to run with your bike helmet on. So try to remember to take your bike helmet off before you start the run, or you're going to do the whole run with the bike helmet. Even if you think you're going to come back for it, it's still considered littering or abandoning equipment. So helmets, packaging for food, anything like that, just keep it in mind that no littering or abandoning equipment. This is a really big one. No headphones and just no phone use. It's really common in other events and other types of things, and of course in training, that people often like to have music, headphones, their phone available and on them. And it's very important that you are as focused as possible on what we're doing, and it's easy to communicate with everyone around you. So no headphones, no phone use, or it's an immediate disqualification. And then no drafting or blocking on the bike. So in triathlon, unless it's a very different kind of triathlon, which is draft legal, there is no drafting, which means you cannot ride behind someone or sort of in a pack. So you need to ride 3 bike lengths away from people and single file. That means that you cannot ride side by side with someone, no matter what. You need to ride single file. If you get passed, you need to allow them to pass you and allow 3 bike lengths to open up. If you are passing, you need to do so decisively. So those are the big ones, but again, please read some of the other rules as well. Everyone wants to know what to wear. So I imagine, having walked through the scenario of the triathlon, you might start getting an idea of what you might need to wear, that there's no changing. There's no nudity and no changing. So what you swim in, you're going to be running in. This is why there's triathlon specific apparel. You don't have to buy anything specific. Whatever you have in your closet might work. I just suggest that you try it. So the top example that you see here on this slide, sports bra, regular swimsuit, just a t-shirt, and some athletic shorts. You could totally do a triathlon in this setup. You'd swim in the sports bra underneath the swimsuit. And then when you get out of the water, you would put on the t-shirt. The t-shirt would have your race bib safety pinned onto it and put on the shorts. Some downsides to this system is that everything gets wet, and it's the shorts and the t-shirt sometimes are hard to put on while wet, or sometimes just don't do well with the wind on the bike. So those are some considerations. The sports bra might not fit well underneath the swimsuit. It can lead to some more chafing, but it could work. What you have in your closet might work. I highly recommend, if you have stuff at home that you want to try it out in the shower, in the bathroom, get it totally sopping wet, jump up and down, do some jumping jacks, pretend to run, see if it holds up the bathroom test. If it does that, you can try it sort of in a gym setting. If that works, try it in an outdoor setting and run it, through the whole sequence of events, and see how it does for you. Now, if you feel like purchasing some triathlon specific apparel, that's great too. It's just designed to go from the swim all the way through the run as seamlessly and as comfortably as possible. It comes in separates or one pieces. So the vertical picture you see of a woman wearing a one-piece triathlon suit, the bottom image is separate triathlon pieces with just, again, a regular sports bra. There are triathlon sports bras, or whatever chest support works best for you. Again, just make sure it works completely sopping wet all the way through the run. What makes triathlon apparel different than other athletic apparel is that it should fit very tight. So on the swim, it's not getting pulled by the water. And then on the bike, it's not flapping. And then that on the run, you're not getting a lot of chafing. So bike shorts are great on the bike, but bike shorts generally have a very thick pad. If you swim in them, then you will be biking and then running in essentially a very soggy diaper. So that's just something to consider. Also, sometimes bike apparel is just, again, not really meant to be swum in. So those are just some of the big considerations. Triathlon apparel often has pockets, and those pockets are like extra streamlined as well for that reason. One piece versus two piece is just in a personal preference. So whatever floats your boat, but just try it in advance. Nothing new on race day. So the race itself is going to be new. The race itself will throw you some new learning experiences, and you want it to be as fun as possible. So just no experimenting on race day with something new. Whatever you have, test it out in advance. Let's talk about gear. Another hot topic for triathlon. So we'll just start by thinking about training versus racing. So some things you're going to want for training, but not necessarily applies to the racing. So for example, for training, I really suggest that you get bike lights. You might want some other things for biking. Maybe you're going to do some bike commuting and you want a bike rack and panniers and a basket, whatever else it is. So there might be some things for biking that just support your daily biking habits and make you more visible and safe on the roads when you're on your own, but you don't necessarily need those things for the race, and I highly recommend taking them off, again, keeping things simple for the race itself. Other training versus racing considerations: if you have access to a pool, those usually have some sort of pool chemicals and chlorination, and it's really often best to swim in a swimsuit as opposed to tri-specific apparel on a regular basis. The tri-specific apparel is great for the race, but is generally not going to sort of withstand daily, weekly use that you would want to have just a dedicated regular swimsuit for. So those are just some considerations, training versus racing. For the swim, you need a swimsuit, and I highly recommend goggles and a cap. You'll get a cap from the race, and that's going to be color-coded to help us identify you. You don't have to wear a cap when training, but I highly recommend it because you'll need to for racing. And then goggles, you don't have to, but it's good for eye protection, and it's going to make your swim experience better. It should make your swim experience better. So if you don't like the way your goggles fit, just keep trying some until you find something that is comfortable. For indoors and low light situations, you should have clear or lightly tinted goggles. And for outside with the sun, you should have mirrored or sort of sunglass style goggles. And then in the swim, for outdoors, a wetsuit and a buoy are possibilities. A wetsuit should be a triathlon or swim specific wetsuit as opposed to a paddling or scuba diving style wetsuit. And then a buoy is not something that you would use in the race because that's a flotation device, but it is a way to be more visible and safer in open water swim training. For the bike, you can buy a bike or modify the bike you have. If you're considering buying a bike, buy a bike that most suits your daily use for a bike, not necessarily this specific race. So just keep that in mind if you're considering buying a bike. If you're modifying one you have, take it into a bike shop, make sure it fits you appropriately, get it professionally fit. It's going to make a big difference in your sort of comfort and, less injury likelihood. So, and then there are lots of simple things you can do to add or swap out parts of your bike to make it more efficient for triathlon without getting a brand new bike. And then maintenance, it's really great if you can just learn to fully inflate your tires with a standing bike pump. That can go a long way to reducing flat tires. And then anything else you learn, like learning to replace a flat tire, learning how to put a chain back on your bike if it falls off, will just empower you, particularly in your training. For the race, we do have volunteers on the bike course to help support you if you have a mechanical problem during the race. It's going to take a while for them to get to you. So anything that you feel more empowered to do on your own just helps you have more peace of mind and a smoother race experience. And then for shoes, bike shoes, multiple pairs of run shoes. Bike shoes are great. It's going to help you have a more efficient bike. But learning how to use them and to clip in with clipless pedals is a skill. So one option is to simply have a pair of shoes that you bike in and a pair of shoes that you run in. And that pair of shoes that you bike in will probably get wet from the water draining from the swim. But then you just put on a fresh pair of running shoes for the run. So you're wearing clean, dry socks and shoes. I highly recommend bungee laces. So tying shoes when your hands are wet and you're full of adrenaline and you're all excited, tying laces is really shockingly hard. So bungee laces are an excellent way to go. They're a cost-effective way to make your triathlon experience way smoother. And maybe your daily life. Who likes tying shoes? And then a race belt. Very simple. Whatever you're planning on wearing, I've mentioned it before, but having your race belt, having your race number attached to a race belt is a low-cost piece of gear that can just make your life easier. Raining! So now that you have so much information about what to expect on race day and what you'll need to get or what you might already have, let's talk about training, which is generally why people register for a race to begin with. You're doing it to help you have habits that are supporting you for your whole life, to improve your daily well-being. So hopefully you're going to enjoy the training process, enjoy the variety that triathlon brings to a exercise routine. So how much time do you need to commit? Somewhere between 4 to 10 hours per week for a sprint distance triathlon. It's a pretty wide range. So 4 hours is for someone who is newer to exercise, newer to triathlon, thinking about doing of the swim, bike, and run, one of those each a week, plus some other exercise, yoga, strengthening, if you have physical therapy exercises, those sorts of things. So that's what you do with 4 hours. 10 hours is quite on the high end, and that's if you have someone who has more ambitious goals. Either they've done a triathlons before and they're looking to get set personal records, or they're aiming to move up to longer distances in triathlon in the future. So from like doing a sprint distance triathlon this year, but you're hoping to set yourself up for sort of Olympic distance, half iron distance, then aiming to that higher end of that spectrum just sort of sets you up for multi-year goals. It's not necessarily that you start with 4 hours and end with 4 hours. So for someone just getting started to exercise, maybe they're starting with just 2 hours and then over 3 months are building from 2 hours to 4 hours. Same for someone training for a bigger race. Maybe they're going to set aside 5 months to train, and they might work up from 4 hours to 10 hours of training. So it's not just a linear amount of training throughout that entire block of time. So 4 to 10 hours per week, and I would say anywhere between 10 weeks in preparation to 5-6 months of preparation. Let's talk about some other skills. So in the for the swim, the pool, especially in Minnesota, is a really great resource if you have one, because then you can practice techniques for efficiency and practice strokes when you don't have all the environmental factors of open water in a lake. So if you have access to a pool, that's a great place to learn and practice actual strokes and techniques. It doesn't have to just be freestyle. I highly recommend having other strokes available to you. Freestyle is a great stroke, but it tends to be one of the harder ones to learn to do well. So work on other strokes as well. And then when you get to open water, you can focus on open water specific experience. Generally, people have just more emotional responses to being in a less controlled environment of a lake. But also techniques to help you know where you are and get where you want to go in a lake. So those are some things you want to do. And that skill is called sighting, is looking where you're going. There are others. We have classes for that. And then bike, other than getting out there and biking, it's huge to get out there biking, working on maintenance, which we talked about already. Also considering the bike is just, this is where you want to put in the bulk of your time. In triathlon, the bike is the biggest percentage of the race. And so the bike is generally where people are not super concerned. They're worried about the swim for safety reasons. They might be worried about the run for injury reasons and fatigue reasons. But the bike is where you spend the most amount of time in the race. And if you train on the bike properly, it makes everything else easier. So put in the time on the bike. And then run, again, injury prevention. So doing supporting other exercises other than just doing the running or the walking, whether that's yoga or strength training or physical therapy, making sure that you're making the time to fit those things in. Bricks is a triathlon specific type of workout, and that's when you put 2 workouts back to back. So as opposed to I swam at the gym in the morning and then after work I went for a run, that is putting them directly back to back. I did a swim and immediately followed that by a run. Most often, the brick that is trained is bike to run. So doing a bike and immediately following that with a run. And it might just be a long bike ride, a long easy bike ride, put the bike down and immediately head out your door for a run. It could be indoors, biking, running, biking, running, biking, running, biking, running, doing short bits over and over again. So there are different ways to do it, and it could be in reverse. So you could also do a bike and then a swim. So all of those count as bricks as long as it's back to back, but do practice them. And then transitions is a sport in itself. So making sure that you're practicing the skill and going through the routines and patterns of your transition choices with your gear and your clothing, your bike, is really great, because even though it's not the fitness part of triathlon, it sets the tone and helps you have a smooth, fun experience on race day, and that you're not flustered and not sure what to do with your gear. Lastly, nutrition. So most people, again, register for triathlon for health reasons, to personally improve your life. So in training, make sure that your nutrition is supporting that training. And then on race day, you'll probably need specific things and you want to practice for that. So big advocate of real food. So maybe normally for training, you have a banana and later you have some eggs. That can be great for training. Banana and eggs don't translate well to what you need to eat, like when you're getting ready in transition area or while you're on the bike. So this is when sport nutrition products are very handy. And there are a lot of them out there. The key is to sample as many as you can and see what does best on your digestive system, but do practice. So pick some key training days that you will be practicing with your race day nutrition, and practicing that so that you know it sits well on you. Again, nothing new on race day. So that covers a lot of good training stuff, and there's always more, always here for you. Training safety. So you are responsible for yourself. There are lots of things beyond this slide. Make sure that you're always being aware and you're reading regulations, and whatever your city and your environment is. But let's at least take a moment to consider some of the safety procedures for your training. So lake water, also known as open water swimming, make sure you check the regulations for the body of water you're in. So every body of water is different. Start by Googling that body of water, the city or whatever that body of water is, who regulates that body of water, and start there. See what comes up when you Google that and when you look at who regulates that body of water. In Minneapolis, you cannot swim outside the normal buoyed swim area. It's over $1,000 fine unless it's part of a sanctioned event. So Minneapolis just has a lot of other boats and a lot of other traffic, so you can't just swim wherever you want. But again, check the regulations for your body of water. Never swim alone. So even if you have a friend on the beach watching out for you, that's better than nothing. You should never just be completely solo out there. Be aware of bacteria levels, and try not to swim 48 hours after heavy rain. That's generally when bacteria levels rise from that runoff, but check. And again, that's where you would Google and check the city and what they're reporting. Don't swim during storms. This should be obvious. Don't get struck by lightning, but wait at least 20 minutes from the last lightning occurrence that's visible. And again, you can track these things with your phone, but do pay attention to that. And obviously, if the lifeguards have closed the beach, respect that. And then be visible. So that's one of the reasons why we have highly visible swim caps, and why we recommend swimming with a buoy. And you can see that in the picture. There are people towing bright buoys behind them. With road biking, wear your helmet on and clipped. It's really common people put on helmets and then don't clip them. If it's on your head, make sure it's clipped. Be visible, use lights, use reflective things, be predictable. And this means a predictable line of traffic. This doesn't always mean hiding yourself as far to the right as possible. In Minneapolis, you have a right to bike and take the whole lane if you feel like that's necessary to be visible and to be safe, as opposed to hugging the curb where there are things that might take you off your bike. Or if hugging the curb means that you'll be veering in and out of traffic, which makes you less visible and less predictable. So just some things to consider. And know your rights. I can tell you what's available in Minneapolis, but for wherever you are biking, make sure you're aware of what your rights are as a biker. And I'd say as a women's triathlon, sometimes we have to be brave and take up the space that we know we need to be safe. Thank you. Thank you for joining me. I hope you learned a lot, and there's opportunities to learn more. So we have all different sorts of classes. We have some more of these talks online. We do them in the winter. But we also have in-person classes, so make sure you check it out on our website. And you can always email the triathlon@ywcampls.org. Happy training.